Hey, it's JK. Welcome back to me trying to beat Elden Ring with every magic school. This is the second video in a 6-part series where I'm going to complete 24 new game cycles of Elden Ring using a different magic school each time. Each video will cover 4 of these cycles, and each cycle I must kill Elden Beast, Malenia, Bayle the Dread, and Promised Consort Radahn, as well as one non-mandatory remembrance boss of my choosing. Last time, we covered Oracular, Bestial, Crystalian and Miquellan schools of magic. Some were awesome, some were not so good. Today, we're starting off in New Game Plus 4 with Magma sorceries, then using Thorn sorceries in New Game Plus 5. We follow that up with New Game Plus 6 where we'll use Death sorceries, and we'll end on Golden Order incantations in New Game Plus 7. That's right, we've got another pure holy damage school to finish this up. Once again, some stuff performed way better than expected, while others caused me physical pain and aneurysyms, including one of the longest boss fights I have ever had in a Souls game. For those interested, this entire run is streamed on my second channel JK Stairs, so do check that out if you want to see this in progress. Before we kick off though, I want to let you all in on something. As well as making sure you don't miss another video in this series, if you subscribe to this channel, you'll help me beat my friend Lemon in our tight-knit race to 1 million subscribers. If we win, I will fly to America, take him out for an expensive steak dinner, and run out after we eat so he has to pay the bill. With that out of the way, let's see if we can dispel some myths about these magic schools. We start off the Magma cycle coming out of the Chapel of Anticipation, where I decided to wear the Fire Knight helmet and get a cinematic shot for my editor Junpei. We're starting off this cycle with a very weird spell, Rykard's Rancor. This was because we kinda had to kill Rykard last cycle to get it, as it's pretty much impossible to do with Magma sorceries. It fires off a flaming skull that leaves a trail behind it that then explodes. It's pretty slow moving, but the tracking and damage is kinda decent actually. The Scion goes down with little issue. I decided to give the spell Rykard's Encore against the Tree Sentinel at the start of the game, but it soon became clear that this spell would struggle against more mobile opponents. Many of the explosions kept missing, and it was really hard to get any damage on him after a certain point. After a long fight, he killed me at the last minute. Shortly after, I blasted these nobles with my Rancor. Not for any particular treason, of course. I certainly don't hold a grudge. Making my way into Mistwood, Gino Machino tried to tell me that scythes in Elden Ring were broken, but soon he realized the only thing broken was his body after eating multiple Rancors. Now, given that Rykard's Rancor is fire damage, it would be a good idea to get a physic tier to help boost that damage. So, time to take out the Putrid Avatar at the start of Caelid for the Fire Shrouding Crack tier. Unlike the Tree Sentinel, the Avatar moves much more slowly, and as such was very easy to hit with Rancor's explosions. Combine this with the Avatar's weakness to fire, and we wish good putridance to him in no time at all. With this extra 30% fire damage, it seemed like a good time to take on Margit. Using the shackle at the start, I was easily able to land a lot of explosions and push him to phase 2 almost immediately. Although he doesn't lore walk quite as much in phase 2, he still does it just enough to semi-consistently get damage off. After we caught him in with enough of these explosions, he dies. As per the rules of the run, whenever we kill a significant boss, I may use the next level of smithing stones to upgrade my staff. We used smithing stone 4s on our staff before the start of the run, and we're now going to use smithing stone 5s to bring it up to plus 15. I then do some Rykard's parkour through this part of Stormvale and head in to take on Godric. The damage against him was pretty good, but here was the first time I encountered the large drawback of this spell, being able to see what the hell is going on behind all the explosions. At some points, I literally could not see what was going on or what he was doing, leading to him hitting me with the long-range wind attacks. Saying that, we did also land so many explosions that it actually stance broke him in the latter part of the fight. I didn't even really need to cast much more beyond this because I had teed up so many that he died once they caught up to him. Smithing Stone 6s can now be used, and we get the staff to plus 18. I pushed on beyond Stormvale into Liurnia and grabbed the Academy key from behind Little Smaraggi. I then iframed the hell out of these spells to enter and took the Water Wheel lift, but not to the Red Wolf. Nope, we are actually heading to the bottom here because we need to get to Mount Gelmir ASAP, and this Abductor Virgin here is the best way to do it. After a brief lava run, Seriously, why does the lava only lightly burn me? This is so weird. We take the lift up and head in to fight the Noble Skin God. So, the bad news here is these guys have pretty good fire resistance. Not sure what the logic is behind skin being resistant to fire. If that were the case, I wouldn't look like a lobster every time I go to a hot country. In any case, he does have a habit of moving quite slowly, so getting the explosions to hit him isn't really an issue. We can also get him to roll into a pillar where we can happily cast away. Despite a few big slams, this noble presents few issues for us. With our staff now upgraded with +7s, I tried out Rykard's Rancor on the snakes here to demonstrate that they are completely immune to fire. Weird that they are, but Rykard himself isn't. I then opened up the Stone Sword key door, made my way to the bottom of the dungeon, and took the door back out to the entrance of Volcano Manor. I joined Volcano Manor and got the Tanith Room key from drawing. In here, we find a nicely sealed letter giving us a target to eliminate for a reward. First up to eliminate is Istvan. I figured out here that the best tactic with Rancor is to cast it and then roll past the enemy as they run at you, so they turn around and walk into the explosions. We take him out shortly, even though a few explosions missed Van. We now return to Tanith, who awards us a new Magma sorcery, Magma Shot. This should help with some more consistent damage, hopefully. There is a piece of bad news though. We actually can't exit Volcano Manor via the entrance from the inside. This front door only opens from the outside, you see. So, we might as well go get the medallion pieces. I test out Magma Shot on this knight. The magma pool it leaves helps to deal extra damage for a few seconds after and makes quick work of him. With Medallion Piece 1 and Medallion Piece 2 grabbed, we take the lift up to Altus. I then went to take out the second assassination request for Volcano Manor. This guy dies after standing idle in the lava for too long. Tanith rewards us with a useless katana, but more importantly, we can now get the letter to Bernal to unlock another assassination quest in the capital later. For now though, we take a little trip around Mount Gelmir to get another sorcery, Roiling Magma. I'll be interested to see how this does. As we need to kill some more shard bearers and the Radahn festival is now active, we may as well go take him out. We'd need to anyway later for DLC access, so why not do it now? After engaging in a hearty lunch, it appeared Radahn was ready to rumble. I suppose this might be a good time to give Roiling Magma a shot. So, this spell is a little bit odd. When you fire it and it doesn't hit an opponent, it just lays on the ground and explodes after a little while, leaving a pool of magma. If it does hit the opponent though, it just does a chunk of damage and nothing else. It feels like it should still explode when it hits them. The damage from it seems pretty decent, but you get most out of it if you don't actually hit the opponent, and luring them onto the mine for when it explodes seems kinda tricky to pull off. But, despite the oddness of this spell, we take out Radahn without royally too much issue. This brings our staff to almost maximum with Smithing Stone 8s. I proceeded down to Nokron here, and I laid a mine to blow up these two emaciated dudes. It seems like it actually lures enemies in, so if they don't see you, you can kind of just lay this as a trap for them, which is pretty cool actually. I was also able to free aim it so it landed next to Mimic Tier and blow it up before he could do anything, which was very satisfying. After taking out this Crucible Knight from above, it was time to take on one of my most hated bosses in the game. Yep, it's these guys. Needless to say, the Valiant Gargoyles were not in a good mood. Ouch. It certainly doesn't help that the arena is in water, dulling our fire damage. Given how they can display some passivity from a distance and they're quite large, I opted for Rykard's Rancor here. It should help punish that stupid poison attack they just love doing. That said, a charged up Roiling Magma also did some good damage whenever I could land it. Once one was dead, the fight became a whole lot easier, and soon enough I got the win I had been anticipating. With a now rare level up into Arcane, I took a reverse Darby Allin up to the Deeproot depths. Now, you might be curious why I'm coming here. Well, for a fight later in this run, we are going to need all the damage we can possibly get. As such, we need to grab the strongest staff in the game, the Prince of Death's Staff. With an A scaling in Int and Faith when max upgraded, this is the highest sorcery scaling we can get at maximum Int and Faith, even higher than Lusat's staff, but without the extra FP cost. We'll of course keep the Gelmir staff in our offhand to boost the Magma sorceries. I decided also that we may as well take the secret route into the capital this time by taking on Fia's champions. Roiling Magma actually almost one-shot the first guy. For Rogier, I kept laying the roiling magma mines on the ground for him to run into, which had kind of mixed results, honestly. I switched back to Rykard's Rancor to finish him off. I attempted the same with the group and had better luck this time. I took out Lionel second to last for once and then blew up the final guy. This boss no longer interferes with my progress. With that, we can effectively skip Altus Plateau and make our way through the portal in the capital. After burning up the avatar on the way, I could finally take part in Bernard's assassination of these two clowns. Despite the second guy going crazy with spells at one point, we were able to burn them to a crisp. For this, we get the final magma sorcery of the run, Gelmir's Fury. At this point, I realized I had neglected Memory Stone, so I went to grab one from this rise in the Urnia. I then tested out Gelmir's Fury on Magnus, and yeah, that kinda slaps. I next needed to get this towel wet with blood, so I did it at the Church of Inhibition this time. Vike tried to interfere, but I soon left him festering in a pool of lava. This guy then did some very painful things to my finger, which I made him pay for after getting the Pure Blood medal. This, of course, leads us nicely into the worst fight of the cycle, the one I had been dreading, Mohg, Lord of Blood. 80% fire resistance, and he regains health in the phase transition. It should go without saying, but this absolutely sucked. Our damage is terrible, even a charged roiling magma only does about 300 damage. Conversely, his damage is monstrous, and a wrong move means a quick death. The blood flames spread along the ground is also a big issue when the fight drags out so long, and I started to realize there was a good chance I'd run out of FP. I remembered at this point that there was a scarab helm that reduced the cost of sorceries by 15% in exchange for me taking 5% extra damage, which honestly seemed worth it. Out of all my offensive spells, unfortunately the one that allowed me to do the most damage was the most unreliable to hit, that being Rykard's Rancor. As well as being unreliable, the bigger issue is it obscuring my view with explosions, making it hard to see what attack he's going to do. Despite this issue, I truly believe this spell was the key to victory. It was just going to take a little while to get there. To finally get this done, I started with all my damage boosting talismans equipped. I started the fight by getting in close and shackling him for a charged Gelmir's Fury. The damage here was, I think saying respectable would be a bit strong, but better than what we'd see later. As a side note, I searched YouTube for other runs people had done beating the game with magma sorceries, and every single one of them either didn't do Mohg, broke the rules by using a different spell class to beat Mohg, or used cheat engine to one-shot him. So this might be the first documented case on YouTube of someone beating Mohg with magma sorceries, and he's New Game Plus 4. Yay for me, I guess? Anyway, my strat for the rest of Phase 2 was just to make distance and fire Rykard's Rancor as he slowly walked into the explosions. I'd also swapped in the Blessed Dew and Blue Blessed Dew talisman to help with health and FP. Phase 1 honestly isn't too bad, as he doesn't have as many gap closers. We can blast him a lot with Rancor during the phase transition, but he still gets a lot of health back. This phase took forever, as I pretty much just ran as far away from him as possible and then repeated the process. This went on for a solid 10 minutes, and towards the end, I was getting pretty nervous that I was going to run out of FP and have to wait for the Blue Dew regen. Luckily, one of the last Rancors hit him a load of times, totaling nearly 1,000 damage, which doesn't seem like much, but trust me, in this situation, that is insane. With only enough FP for one more Rancor, our penultimate one was thankfully enough to score us this momentous victory. With the blood echoes we got from him, we actually went up 2 whole levels, bringing Arcane to 30. I now made my way into Gravesite Plain. I've been wanting to get into the DLC as soon as possible because we can grab the newly added talisman, Talisman of the Dread. This gives a 15% boost to any magma-related spells, which is a very nice buff. Well, we might as well take care of some DLC business while we're here. Ancient Dragonman's ghost did way too good a job of avoiding our magma shots, so I went with the tried and tested Rykard's Rancor to easily blow him up. We proceeded downwards into the Dragon Pit to face the true Ancient Dragon Man. He seemed to have learned a little from that first encounter and initially avoided the Rancor, but with enough clever maneuvering, we get him to eat some fiery skulls. We then proceeded up Jagged Peak to fight the Peak Dragon Bayle the Dread. I opted for Rykard's Rancor here because I figured, hey, he's a big guy, it'll be easy to hit him with lots of explosions, right? And you know what? Yeah, I was actually correct this time. Landing this in the right position could yield huge damage numbers. That's not to say he didn't do the same to me, because he most certainly did. At some points I probably deserved to die for how greedy I was. But the greed actually paid off here, and we actually defeated Bayle on our first attempt. It seems we were definitely battle-dready. With our first mandatory boss handled, we made our way past Bonnie Village and up into the church district of Shadowkeep. I thankfully remembered to speak to Leda before going in to push that quest forward. I then blew up this Fire Knight and drained the water to the church district to clear the path for our optional remembrance boss of this cycle. We take the very long lift down to Shadowtree Base and take on the Shadowtree avatar. While we certainly do amazing damage with our Magma, he really likes interrupting us while we cast. Important to note, I for some reason became determined to do this with only Gelmir's Fury because I like the big explosive damage. After choking right near the end one time, the next one was the victory. My strat was very simple actually, get up close to him and cast Gelmir's Fury after he does an attack. I was wearing some more bleed resistance armor to help out also. For phase 3, I decided to just tank the explosion at the start so I could get off a Gelmir's Fury. After narrowly avoiding death from the second round of explosions, I was able to get one last cast off to prevent this sunflower from tarnishing my run. After putting one more point into Arcane, I made my way up, putting on some more appropriate drip, which was soon followed by an inappropriate drop. I blew up another Fire Knight using Rykard's Rancor, and then blew this one off the edge with a roiling Magma. After toasting one more of these idiots because I just enjoy it a lot, I joined Leda in taking out Hornsent to make my life easier later in the run.
Nice job, team.
I was now free to proceed up Shadowkeep to take on our next challenge. No, I don't mean Gravity, nor this guy. They really don't like Rancor, do they? I of course meant Mesmer, and yeah, ow. Interestingly, you'd think Mesmer would have huge fire resistance, but it's only 40%. You'd also probably think that Gelmir's Fury would be terrible with how fast Mesmer is, but surprisingly I found quite a lot of windows to land it, and the damage meant it was worthwhile to do so, even if we took a hit in return. 6,000 damage is nothing to sneeze at. After landing enough of them, he went down with, pretty surprising ease. Our erupting Magma cooked him into a mesmerang. With that, we now have Arcane at 34, and we can proceed to the Ancient Row of Ruins. I sped through here avoiding these bouncing red projectiles, and prepared for the usually troublesome encounter with Romina. Except she is weak to fire. Also, she has a wide hurt box, so getting her with Rykard's Rancor is a perfectly acceptable strategy. I was curious though how much Gelmir's Fury would do, and the answer is, quite a lot. I then promptly popped her with 2 charged Roiling Magmas, and that was it. It would appear she didn't have a large enough health budget. I then level up Arcane to 36 and burn the Sealing Tree to unlock the way to aneurysyms. Upon entry, we made some fried chicken, fed Smo's mum some roiling magma, and confused this dancing lion simp so much that he decided to end it. You know, for once I was feeling kinda good about the Leda fight. Hornsent had been sent to hell, and Rykard's Rancor had proven it was quite useful for NPCs. As expected, Dane caught fire pretty easily. Perhaps if he'd been Wetleaf Dane instead, this wouldn't be an issue. That said, I still brought Natan in because he is a Chad. Leda was quickly dispatched, and the flying kicking man was ordained shortly after. At long last, we have made it to our second mandatory boss of the cycle, Promised Consort Radahn. Now I know what you're all thinking. Is JK going to be stupid enough to try using Gelmir's Fury against him? The answer is yes, absolutely. I mean that damage! That said, Rancor was also pretty good damage-wise. Roiling Magma also took off a nice chunk of health. For phase 2, even I wasn't stupid enough to try Gelmir's Fury here. I stuck with just Roiling Magma. Overall, this was a pretty good first attempt, but he caught me with the Pontiff combo here. I was very close though, and the next attempt was a lot closer. Okay, that kinda stings. I had determined by this point that the risk of using Gelmir's Fury was too high, even in phase 1, so I stuck with Rancor to bring phase 1 down quick. Although Roiling Magma was the safest bet, I couldn't get away from the damage that Rancor provided. A risky strat with all the explosions already happening on the screen, I know. But it sort of paid off. The final section following the big meteor was tough though. He just kept moving and avoiding the explosions as if he knew his death was close at hand. with one Rancor leaving him a single hit from death, I swapped to Magma Shot to land the final blow. There were some risky plays here. I'd refer to them as consortition. After popping a few consumable souls, we get Arcane to 38 and then return to the base game where we kill this tough boss for the first part of the Haligtree Medallion. I then returned to the capital and made my way up to face Godfrey. Crazy that we haven't done that yet, but Radahn is dead. Compared to our journey so far, this was an absolute cakewalk. One Gelmir's Fury took off nearly half his health. I simply baited the axe jump again for another big hit, and then dodged his axe swings to take him out with minimal issue. I then fired this Black Knife Assassin and went to face Morgott. You can probably imagine how this went. One Gelmir's Fury phase 2'd him immediately. I did land another in phase 2, but after this I used Magma Got to quickly finish off Morshot. The impenetrable thorns blocked my way, Malenia gave me a steroid medallion, and I beelined through this place I can't remember the name of until we reached Ryan Gosling land at the top of this lift.
Hey!
My first objective here was to get the other half of the medallion, and that means entering Castle Sol. My first plan for Niall was to immediately go up to him and use Gelmir's Fury. This didn't go so well. This didn't stop me from trying again though. Hey, it worked a lot better this time. I initially thought Rykard's Rancor would be amazing for this fight given how slow he walks, but I had the weirdest trouble trying to get it to hit him. Oh well, nothing that a few roiling magmas to the face can't solve. He thought he wasn't going to lose, but he was just in denial. We then grabbed the second half of the Haligtree Medallion. Before we head Haligtree way though, I thought we should try Fire Giant first. Despite having fire in his name, he actually only has 50% fire resistance, and Gelmir's Fury brought up some good numbers. Shame he lightly stepped on me and I died. I actually came super close next attempt, but an ill-timed Radahn torrent snuffed out my hopes of victory. For the next one, I took no prisoners. 2 Gelmir's Fury casts dealt around 11,000 damage at the start of the phase. A few more easily brought phase 2 along. I then used it again on his hand as he did Burn O' Flame. Thanks to his large body and slow lumbering movements, Rykard's Rancor was the perfect spell to deal some big damage in this section. Despite him rolling out of the way of a few, we swiftly took out this giantagonist. My plan now was to head to the Haligtree and sort out Malenia before heading to Farum Azula. So I stormed through the frigid outskirts, entered Ordina, and used Rancor to handle the super annoying archers. It was honestly kinda tricky when they moved further onto the roof after being exploded, but it was worth the effort. I lit all the beacons and then entered the Haligtree. God damn it. Anyway, I was able to bring Arcane to 40 and then burn these ants from above before they swiftly took their revenge on me. Anyway, Loretta. For her, I quickly realized Rancor wouldn't work due to her maneuverability. I also realized getting hit by her halberd was not a good idea. So, back to Old Faithful Gelmir's Fury. At least for the opening window. I tried some more Rancor for the lols, but soon switched to Magma Shot. During the phase transition, I landed a load of them, and soon enough she went down without even doing much in phase 2. I really need to give this spell more of a shot, it seems. After obliterating this putrid avatar for basically no reason, I ran furiously down the roots of the Haligtree until it was Malenia time once more. I was pretty curious about how Rykard's Rancor would work with her constantly slow lore walking, and the answer is, yeah, pretty well. For much of the first phase, I just made some distance, cast, and watched the fireworks. While only 2 explosions seemed to hit each time, this strategy was extremely safe. She actually didn't hit me once, and she never even did waterfowl here. Rancor also worked well for the start of phase 2, but I knew that hitting her with it beyond this point would be tricky. So I opted to switch back to Magma Shot and just hit her with that when I could. This strategy was certainly slow, but it was quite safe. After a lot of patience and waiting for those precious butterfly explosion openings, we take out Malenia on our first attempt. That was a magnificent win. With Arcane pumped to 42, it was time to do a couple other bits of prep for the next cycle. So I grabbed the Briars of Sin sorcery, and literally the second Fire Witch I kill drops Staff of the Guilty, the staff we need for the Thorn sorceries. I also made sure to grab the Albinauric staff, as the arcane scaling on that will be important later. With that sorted, we could enter Farum Azula at last. I quickly banished this knight into the lava and then got the hell beaten out of me by some godskins. Ow. Unfortunately, these guys are fire resistant like their cousin in Volcano Manor. So I stuck with my usual strat of getting the big guy stuck rolling against the pillar and then using Gelmir's Fury for big numbers. I then Magma shotted the Apostle and took him out just after he brought his big buddy back. After another rolling attack from him, we absolutely melted him down with a couple more Gelmir's Furies to keep the momentum going. We are really on a roll here. After sniping this Naifu Nation wannabe beast man, I take the new much quicker route past the Crucible Knight that I only just learned about. Neat. The Draconic Tree Sentinel I then had a battle of fireballs, although he started cheating by bringing lightning into the mix. I showed him soon after though. Now, what to use for Malekith? Well, Rancor hasn't really steered me wrong, so why change what works? When he was close to phase 2, I swapped a Magma shot for guaranteed big damage. This was so consistent, I kept with it in phase 2, and it only took 4 or 5 of them to take him down. At least it wasn't 6 or 7. With my Malekith hangover destroying the inside of my head, it was Ashen Capital time once again. I leveled up Arcane and made my way to Gideon. Now, just ignore the fact there's a fog gate here. I definitely didn't die to Gideon. I don't know what you're talking about. Damn it. Quick, Junpei, cut away, we can't have people seeing this. Anyway, next try, I got some weird RNG where he barely did anything and just let me cast Gelmir's Fury like 4 times and kill him with ease. Stupid Gideon. Okay, so Godfrey. For the initial part, I stuck with Magma Shot and waited until he did the big slam power-up, pretty much the one window I would get to cast Gelmir's Fury. The damage was big, and a couple more shots brought him to Hoaraloo phase. The formula for this one? Run away, Magma Shot. Run away, Magma Shot. Run away, Magma... You get the idea. After enough fiery balls to his face, he actually thought he had won, but unfortunately, he was hallucinating. So that just leaves Radahn and Elden Beast to finish off the Magma sorcery cycle. And guess what? Radahn is fairly vulnerable to fire. Gelmir's Fury at the start deals a respectable chunk of damage. Surprisingly, I did find a few more windows to cast it. 4 of them were enough to bring him down, further showing just how strong Gelmir's Fury can be in the right hands. Even against Elden Beast with its fire resistance and being in water to reduce fire damage, this was still delivering some meaty numbers. 3 of them brought it below half health. Although Elden Stars and his projectiles did cause me some pain, we were able to survive. I did get greedy near the end and went for one when I knew I probably shouldn't have. Things got a bit dicey, but after dodging a last sword swing, we proved that we are the Magmaster of this world. The Magma cycle is complete. What an awesome sorcery school, very versatile and unique. Gelmir's Fury is definitely the MVP. This would honestly be a top tier school if it weren't for how awful the Moog fight was. But now, we must enter the Thorn cycle, one that many have warned me is one of the worst magic schools in the whole game. Before moving on, I quickly upgraded Arcane to 46 and switched to Alberic's set, not just for cool drip, but also because the hat, braces and robe each give a 6% boost to Thorn sorcery damage. Not the legs though for some reason. I also upgraded Staff of the Guilty and the Albinaric Staff using up to Smithing Stone 5s as this is New Game Plus 5 we're going into. Finally, I equip our starting sorcery Briars of Sin and change the physic to magic damage as that is apparently what this spell does. With that sorted, we can finally begin the cycle. Briars of Sin releases an AoE around you which deals magic damage and bleed build-up on enemies. The downsides? Well, it's slow, it locks you into place, it costs you health for every cast, and also builds up bleed on you. All of that sounds pretty awful, right? Well, despite that, we actually get some good damage on the Scion and manage to take him out with relative ease. I can definitely see some problems ahead though. There's nothing we really want to gather at this early stage, so I see no reason not to just go for Margit immediately. We can use the Shackle to get in some big damage at the start. Now, you might have noticed this already, but Briars of Sin can be cast up to 3 times. This helps deal good damage and bleed build-up, but if you go as far as the 3rd cast, it really locks you into place for a long time after, leaving you very vulnerable. That said, we use the Shackle to get off a total of 6 casts on Margit, bringing him to about 40% health remaining. From this point on, getting off even a single cast without taking a hit was next to impossible. Luckily, we were able to trade and we land the finishing blows to remind Margit that he had a Briar engagement. I next ran through Stormvale. You might note that I didn't upgrade my staff despite beating a significant boss, and that's because I forgot to be honest. Surprising, I know. So, on to Godric. Similar to Margit, getting off casts without taking hits was simply not going to be possible. Tanking damage is basically the only way to get through here. We managed to get him down to phase 2 thanks to the damage, but boy did we get smacked on the way. The best windows for phase 2 were when he did the fire attack, and even that was not a guaranteed safe window. Eventually, he god pricked his finger on our thorns and died from the infection. After making our way into Liurnia, I do the 2 lots of upgrades allowed via the killing of 2 significant bosses. I then returned to the round table to speak to Enya about her Orinoco flow, and then made my way to the Strewn Rune Pissy Press. I tried in vain to use the Brides of Sin on the bats here, but they took a bite out of my confidence. Seriously, why are they causing me so many issues this time? Eventually, I got revenge for their relentless battery. Before the boss, I decided to switch in the Albinauric Staff. This is one of only 2 staffs in the game with arcane scaling, and only staffs with arcane scaling let you increase the bleed buildup of Thorn sorceries with your arcane stat. Let's test it out on Magma Worm Makar. Although the same issues applied as before, those being that we take hits constantly while trying to cast, we did get a pretty speedy bleed proc, which makes me think that S-scaling in Arcane of the Albinauric Staff is indeed putting in some work. This was overall a pretty short fight, and despite taking a beating, we quickly send this Magma Worm to meet his Makar. With that, we make it up to Altus Plateau. I next returned to Limgrave and took the Snare Trap shortcut all the way to Celia Crystal Tunnel, and went out from there into the swamps of Caelid. Oh right, I forgot that Millicent invades here. Ow, stop shooting me with halos! After luring Millicent to shore and barely avoiding getting rotted, we quickly briar her down with no issue. So, why are we doing Starscourge Radahn now? Well, I think it's important we get to the DLC fairly early. Unfortunately, Radahn sent me to my grave fairly early. Good damage though. Really, there were only a couple attacks in phase 1 I felt confident to quote-unquote punish with Briars of Sin. That said though, the damage in conjunction with the bleed landed some heavy blows, leaving him at about 20% health remaining for phase 2. With another cast at the start while he summoned his meteors, he was 1 hit from death, and a further cast finished him off soon after. You know, this spell did have some kind of synergy with his attack patterns. We now upgrade the Albinauric Staff to plus 24. I then went to speak to Vare once again. To switch things up this time, I decided to try something really stupid. I decided to actually try to invade some other players with this build. Initially, it took a really long time to find anyone, and I was just about to give up when suddenly we got a hit. We got taken to some guys messing about in Windmill Village. In a surprising turn of events, I went for the cast of Briars of Sin, and it actually took them both out. I did not expect that. After trying for another invasion, we eventually got another hit, and guess what? It was the same guys. Sadly, they were wise to my tricks now, and this one didn't go so well. Until recusant Bruce Wayne invaded them to save me. Sadly, he was too late. Should have sent Batman instead. Now, I did only need to invade, not even defeat 3 people for this to work, but for whatever reason, I could not invade again despite waiting for nearly 10 minutes. So eventually I got bored and just went and killed Magnus instead. We then got the towel from Vare, did this jump to the Weeping Peninsula, and then killed Irina for her sweet blood. This let us once again get the Pure Blood Medal and make our way into Mogwyn. What was Moog doing in blood form in that egg with Miquella? I don't know, and I don't want to know. So, I had thought due to Moog's bleed weakness this would be quite easy, but I somehow underestimated how bad building up bleed on myself would be in this fight. Also, his damage is so high that tanking hits is just not really possible. Despite me really wanting to make it to the DLC early, I decided I would proceed more in the base game first to hopefully get a more powerful option to beat him. So, I snuck up behind the Draconic Tree Sentinel and spiked him. He didn't take too kindly to that. Next time, I decided not to lock myself in place and get turned into paste by him. Still finding a single time to cast in the second phase was quite tricky. I basically had to wait for the lightning spread attack and hope I didn't get hit. After a couple of these, one more cast was enough to end this scintillating encounter. Onto the capital once again. Unfortunately though, I have to head down to the subterranean sucking grounds because there's a decent talisman for our build here. Heading down the pipes into the filth below, we run into Lanedale Catacombs. After getting lost as hell in here, which is kind of the standard Lanedale Catacombs experience, we enter the boss fight to take on Esgar Priest of Blood and 2 blood dogs. This was another fight where building up bleed on myself was not a good time, but it actually went fairly smooth. One cast got rid of the dogs and most of Esgar's health. One more cast was enough to guarantee victory. We now have the Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman, which gives us a 20% damage boost for 20 seconds after bleeding occurs. I made my way back to the upper area now, and for a reason that will be apparent later, decided to do Sewer Moog. Of course, I wasn't actually going to go through that pipe maze, so sewer skips all around. So, Sewer Moog, as you probably know, can't actually be bled, which is not good for this build. That being said, this fight did help me figure out a few better openings for casting versus real Moog. The damage at least was decent, and the blood flame situation isn't as bad here as with the real one. I still certainly took some unpleasant hits though. It took nearly 7 minutes of running, waiting, healing, but eventually we deliver the final blows to flush Sewer Moog away. We'll come back to the reason I did that shortly, but for now why don't we take on another bleed immune boss. Yay! I mean, look, you probably know the drill by now. I get hit a whole bunch, manage to get some damage in, chip away at his health, etc. Okay, to be fair, the damage was a lot better here than versus Sewer Moog, so it took far fewer casts. This boss wasn't too much of a thorn in our side. I now did a rare level up where I brought Arcane to 47 and upgraded our staff to maximum, which I could have done ages ago but just forgot to. Oh well. After definitely not cheesing the Black Knife Assassin through the scenery, we entered to take on Morgott. Thanks to the Shackle and a little boost from Lord of Blood's Exaltation, we were able to rip off about 70% of his health in just 2 full casts of Briars of Sin. I took the hit as he phase transitioned for more damage and bleed buildup. Again, casting now became tricky and I got caught by his grab, which very nearly killed me here. The damage was luckily enough to carry us through and we soon claimed victory. That one was a work of Briart. With that handled, I now make my way down the area past Sewer Moog, making the drops needed after only a couple of deaths. We then get naked and groped by 3 large burning fingers, which is honestly just a normal Tuesday in London. I then take the lift out of Lanedale with this very confused misbegotten and make our way to the land that time forgot. Malenia got really jealous of our new relationship with those 3 fingers and told us to do one. We then make our way to the mountaintops for another spell at last. Up near where all these fire witches are, we can grab Briars of Punishment, the second Thorn sorcery of the run. With this in hand, do we now have the strength to defeat the real Moog? Well, the cool thing about Briars of Punishment is that it has range. Being able to cast from a distance is quite a game changer, and the range and speed is pretty good. Now, sure, we still take damage, but we're locked in place from a distance as opposed to close up, which is extremely helpful. So for phase 2, I pretty much just ran away and cast from a distance to avoid him punishing me with a gap closer. The damage per cast wasn't incredible, but it was consistent, and the ability to get an eventual bleed was of great assistance to push this fight closer to its end. Eventually, I told Moog several wordplay jokes, and he died shortly after. Guess he didn't like the Briars of Punishment. Alright, we finally made it to the DLC. I used Moog's souls to get up to 49 Arcane, and then took the route up to the Fort of Reprimand to get to Shadow Altus early. Here, we take our usual route through Bonny Village and back into the church district of Shadow Keep. We drain the water once again here, head down to the now drained lower level where I hate these damn bats. And then we fight this tree spirit in the area where the water used to be. Wish I'd remembered to take the purifying blood tear out of the physic, but oh well. This guy isn't too much issue though, and his death rewards us with another new Thorn sorcery, Mantle of Thorns, which is not very useful, but we'll find something for it later. Basically, it just covers you in thorns, and if you roll into enemies, it does a tiny bit of damage. Yeah, great, awesome. After the usual shenanigans with the Fire Knights, including this guy who didn't fall off but still got murdered, I tested the range of Briars of Punishment. And yeah, it's pretty good. It can even go downwards somehow. But anyway, you know what we're here for. Impenetrable Thorns, the final Thorn sorcery. I can't wait to test it out. It's not the behemoth it once was due to a nerf, but I think it should still serve as well. Before testing, I quickly went to speak to Leda. Just watch what Impenetrable Thorns does to this Fire Knight. It's like Briars of Punishment, but even stronger. We're gonna have some fun with this. We quickly turn Horn Scent into Thorn Scent with minimal issue. As for Spicy Boy Mesmer at the top, we got some nice damage in on him also, when we didn't get devoured by snakes. I opted for Radagon's icon over the Lord of Blood's Exaltation this time, as I didn't find 20 seconds was long enough for me to take advantage of the boost given the attack windows were fewer. This did seem to help, and before long we blasted him into his second phase. The tracking for this spell is pretty good, and the bleed build is very solid also. Crazy that it's still this strong after they nerfed it. This fight was a good demonstration of the Thorn supremacy. After upgrading Arcane a little more, we head to the Cathedral of Manus Metyr to begin the quest for the optional boss we're going to do this cycle. Whole necklace in hand, we climb through the rafters of Shadowkeep using the Obabza gesture to open this doorway. And then we took a side route round to blow into this hole in this giant finger, which is certainly one of the sentences of all time. We still have more to do though, so I make my way to the Cerulean coast and head to the other hanging bell to give that a blow also. This gives us the third map, but also the beloved Stardust Talisman. This gives us max casting speed, but we do take a lot more damage as a result, so I don't know if it's really worth it. En route below the cathedral, we annihilate Sword Anna of Nighthand with Impenetrable Thorns and venture in to fight Metyr. While she does resist magic, she is quite weak to bleed. We do some decent numbers, but I got a little too trigger happy and she axe-handled me into the ground. As with many Metyr fights, this was pretty messy. There's a reason this is one of my least favourite in the whole game. I ended up trading a lot of hits here, but hey, at least each hit feels like it's worthwhile for how much we're depleting her health. Towards the end, she did the stupid giant laser attack, which I opted just to tank the first part of because I still don't know how you're intended to dodge this attack. Like, I know people use Raptor of the Mists or other stuff like that, but that surely can't be the intention. You have to get one specific, and missable by the way, Asher Ward to be able to avoid it. If anyone does know the proper way that you are meant to, then please let me know in the comments. Anyway, sorry, rant over. One more Thorns, and this Metyr-irritating boss is given the finger. I made sure now to upgrade my arcane stat, and then return to the cathedral to take on Count Ymir. For some reason, Impenetrable Thorns had great trouble hitting these little fingers. I also ended up using all my FP, and had to use my one Starlight Shard to try and rescue this attempt. Sadly, my efforts were in vain, and I became the first person in history to die to Ymir. Next time, things went a lot smoother, and we were rewarded with the Maternal Staff. This is the actual best staff for our build, given its A scaling in Int and Arcane. Now that we have this, I felt like it might be a good time to try a respec. Given we have this staff, I realized we don't actually really need Faith, apart from just enough to wield the spells. So, let's head to Raya Lucaria. Unsurprisingly, the Red Wolf of Radahn was kinda hard to hit with Impenetrable Thorns. Unfortunately for him, he is stupid and tries to do his jump attack when he's stuck behind a pillar. Despite all the books there, he wasn't very well reducated. After Moon Dumb meets a similar fate, it was time for Anala. Truth be told, this fight is a little concerning, given we once again do magic damage, so we're kinda hoping the bleed will do much of the heavy lifting, because again, she resists magic with 80%, which is a lot. But good news, we did find a use for Mantle of Thorns. Using this lets me break the Sweeting spell just by rolling into them, which is a good way to save FP. Phase 1 went down with not too much trouble, and Phase 2 also went well, but I then died from the dragon fire of her summon in a death that I literally can't see how I could have avoided this. Stupid summons. We did actually see yellow on the health bar in Phase 2, and not just from the bleed, which was surprising to say the least. Luckily, the bleed really did carry hard this fight, as it would have been a nightmare without it. After enough of our casts, she dies. I now respec all my stats into Intelligence and Arcane, and then immediately respec again after I realized I didn't give myself enough faith for the spells. Oops. Well, onto the mountaintops now. I'm intrigued as to how Fire Giant will go. Okay, so Phase 1 just gets absolutely shredded. Holy shit, that is some insane damage. Phase 2 did prove trickier though. For whatever reason, the thorns would not hit his hands at the start. It seems like the sloped surface is causing some problems here. So instead, I unlocked the camera and just went to his leg to cast. Getting nearly 2,000 damage on a fire giant leg hit is pretty good. After a bleed and a couple more casts, Fire Giant goes down in a death that leaves him stumped. So, fun fact, I've never seen this cutscene before this run. I've never been grabbed by the three fingers before reaching Farum Azula. After we jump in the fire, we ride the lightning of these enemies in Farum Azula so we can seek and destroy our next boss. This of course being the very bleed-weak Godskin duo. Honestly, this wasn't a fight, this was a slaughter. At the beginning, I pretty much just casted on repeat and took out the noble in rapid fashion and then did the same to the apostle. By now, about 30 seconds into the fight, they had about 20% health remaining, and it took just a few more casts to bring the noble down again for the victory. This win made me feel like a god. Luckily, this dragon quickly checked my ego. I sped past up to the lift, and then gave the Draconic Tree Sentinel a taste of the thorns, bringing him down before he could do a single attack. The Beast Clergyman quickly became the Deceased Clergyman, and Malekith got a thorn in his paw and died from the infection. This spell is honestly so broken, I can't believe how much it shredded him. After adding another point to our arcane stat, as if we needed it, Gideon got absolutely obliterated by the strat of stand still and repeatedly press R1. Quite effective actually. Godfrey was a little trickier, mainly when he powers up and does his dashing. It's hard to find a way to get the cast off and hit him. On the second try, things went a lot smoother. I mean look, he literally lore walked towards me and just let me cast over and over until phase 2 began. Of course Horalu does move around a bit more, and while this did mean I had to run away for a while, he too was hit by the repeated cast until he fell at Luva and died. That leaves Radahn, usually the bane of bleed builds due to their immunity to status. But Radahn stands still for ages at the beginning, allowing us multiple casts to take off nearly half his health. He did fight back after this, and clearly he wasn't very happy with me as he smacked me around, but we still found a couple windows where he could land the damage and end this phase. Elden Beast can't be bled, and it has higher magic resistance than Radahn, but it also has many larger windows that allow me to get multiple casts off for several thousand damage. Despite a very close call thanks to a combo of Elden Stars and some holy projectiles, I survived the onslaught and used my staff to put the beast into a maternal sleep. Arcane was now at 99, and it was probably about time to get those Haligtree medallions. Which of course meant another trip to Castle Sol. For no good reason, I used the thorns to take out Ian the Lion Guards at the start because it felt appropriate to do so. As you might expect, Niall got shredded as he stood there at the start of the fight summoning. The summons did try to fight back, but Niall banished them as he went to phase 2. We actually got him so low on health that I decided to give him the ultimate disrespect and use the Mantle of Thorns rolling to finish him off. We really dismantled his pride there. We then get the other medallion, head into the snowfields, make our way up into Ordina, and immediately get one-shot by this archer who I hate with every fiber of my being. These guys were actually some of the most annoying enemies in this whole cycle to try and kill with the Thorn sorceries, as they did so much damage and kept interrupting my cast. After multiple extremely frustrating attempts, I finally took this idiot out. Can't believe I got Albernau Rick rolled there. I also found out about this ladder leading to this last beacon, which I never knew about until this run, so yeah, my chat found that really funny. Anyway, onto the Haligtree and all the joys that await us. Loretta, despite her magic resistance and springy movement, really had no answer for the thorns, and they took her out with relative ease, which was kind of surprising. Seems she only had a finite amount of health. So look, we've seen some pretty busted boss kills so far with this spell, but nothing would compare to the absolute massacre that was this Malenia fight. Like many enemies, the cast of this spell does not trigger Malenia to input read. While you can't cast it multiple times as she moves after she gets hit, the damage is great and the bleed is even better. You can keep running away and casting, only having to worry about waterfowl. But for phase 2, even that beginning Ionia opening is enough to annihilate her health. It got her so low in fact, that it triggered her to do another Ionia very shortly after, which was enough for me to spam cast and finish her. This might be the most insane kill of the run so far. We truly wrought destruction on her here. I leveled up our int to 98 and then returned to the DLC to finish up our business here and conclude the cycle. As to be expected, Ancient Dragon Man got brutalized both in phantom form and in his human form as well. This was especially satisfying given how annoying he can be sometimes. After another level up on our ascent of Jagged Peak, we make it to the top to face Bayle. And you know what? We were finally presented with a challenge. Actually hitting Bayle with impenetrable thorns proved to be tricky. He moves around a lot, as you probably know. Hitting him from a distance just seemed to miss a lot. I tried unlocked and up close also, but that didn't seem to work. On the rare occasions I could spike him in the head, the damage was solid, but it was few and far between. This was easily the most trouble I had hitting something with this spell up to this point. If only his body had a lock-on point. At the very least, when he phase transitioned, I was able to land several and get a couple of bleeds to bring him to relatively low health. But landing thorns in this phase was even more difficult. Eventually, I figured out when to cast it to get the head hit. However, some blasts from his flames left me one hit from death with no heals, with him at a similar amount of health. After avoiding his aerial assault, I landed another thorns to enter this as a victory into my boss Dread Sheet. To quickly prepare for the next cycle now, I went to grab Rancor Call from below Stormveil, then had more trouble than anticipated with these bugs, before grabbing a fresh Prince of Death staff for the next cycle's beginning. Okay, with that done, let's head back to the DLC and face Romina. 20,000 damage right at the start of the fight? Yeah, I'll take that. Seriously though, what is this spell? Following that window, getting casts in admittedly was a bit trickier without being punished. At least we have the phase transition. One more after that was all it took. That felt pretty Romine, honestly. Anir Elim is now open to us. I entered and was greeted by Bird, who tried to show me his YouTube shorts, but he soon learned the only thing that was short was his lifespan. Smo's mum then suffered a similar fate before Leda blasted me with invisible swords. Seriously, why couldn't I see them there? Dane in this fight was just so easy and got torched pretty much immediately upon entry. Leda, on the other hand, just refused to let me cast, which was very rude of her. It's like she doesn't want me to kill her or something. It wasn't until she used her flask that I finally got the windows I needed to thorn her to death. Well deserved. Speaking of not letting me cast, it seems promised consort Radahn was also not a fan of me doing that. Ouch. This was the toughest fight of the run for sure, and took me a number of attempts to get. Phase 1, he was a little more lenient, particularly after the long combo was a good time to cast. For Phase 2, it proved extremely difficult to get a cast off and hit him without being punished, or more than likely killed. The best strategy I found was to time my roll after the long combo, so I could be behind him and out of his reach a little. I got some pretty bad RNG though, and there were big periods where I just couldn't attack. After finally getting a bleed, we pushed him to the meteor phase shortly after. Things were looking tense though, as I had no heals remaining, and many of his attacks would mean the end of this attempt. However, I now got some good RNG, and he did multiple combos in a row I could punish, allowing me to get another bleed and end this fight. We had shown who we really were here. We had revealed the Thorn identity. After one last level up, I had one task remaining before me. Kill Rick Soldier of God using only Mantle of Thorns. At a whopping 18 damage per roll against the hardest boss in the game, this fight took hours and was the ultimate test of skill and endurance. Finally, after almost a day of blood, sweat and tears, we broke through at last and delivered the finishing blow. The cycle is now complete. This is the Thorn Ultimatum. Before making my way into the next cycle, I respec my stats back to Int and Faith. I at this point made the decision that for all future cycles, my casting tool would only be upgraded with a maximum of Smithing Stone 3s to avoid being too overpowered early on. I equipped Rancor Call as our starting spell, and then lit the world on fire to celebrate beating the game with what many said was the worst magic school. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. Briars of Sin, yeah, that was pretty trash, but the other spells were quite good. So, after letting Chaos take the world, I went to say hello to our old friend the Shafted Gryon. Rancor Call fires a bunch of spooky skulls which slowly home in on the target. It's quite decent, providing you can shoot it from a distance, as close range they pretty much all miss. Damage is looking nice though. Similar to before, there was no need to dilly nor dally, so let's more get going. Compared to some of the stuff we've seen in the previous cycles, this did feel like a lot less damage, which, to be fair, is kind of what I wanted by lowering my casting tool's upgrade level, so I can't really complain. As long as Margit lore walks towards us, the spell is pretty spammable and we fire away. We for sure got spanked for greed, and the fact this spell misses so hard at close range is an issue, but with enough persistence, I'd call this a well-earned victory. We hug to Blacksmith Head now and upgrade our staff with Smithing Stone 4s. After storming through the veil of this castle, we enter to fight Graftric the God. For him, I tried charging up Rancor Call to get a little bit more damage, but the difference didn't seem too significant. But again, the spammable homing properties of this spell really shine through here, as a lot of the time there isn't a lot he can do while we just fire our shiny skulls at him from a distance. Despite getting some 3rd degree burns, we defeat him so badly that he threatened to sue us. I'll see you in Rancourt. With that, we enter Liurnia for a cinematic Junpei shot, and we now upgrade our staff to plus 15. I took the portals in Liurnia to unlock all the necessary graces, and then made my way to these ruins by the Academy to fight this Deathrite bird. There's a couple of them we'll have to fight this cycle to unlock some new death sorceries. Despite his reasonably high magic resistance, his head is a weak point which our skulls home in on. Fun fact here, there is a cheese where you can get the Deathrite bird here to jump up into a death plane to immediately kill it. I guess it gets sucked into the death plane's death engine. However, this guy was being a dick and refused to give me the funny haha kill, so I just blasted him with more skulls to unlock Ancient Death Rancor. This spell is basically an upgraded version of Rancor Call. It fires more skulls, and as such does more damage, which we like. It's unfortunate that our first boss to try it on does resist magic, but Loretta's health kind of compensates for this. The tracking of this spell is also really good, following Loretta for ages even though she goes crazy jumping all over the place. Soon enough, she was ancient history. I now bring our staff to plus 18, and for the first time in the run go engage with Fia. I mean, there's probably no more appropriate cycle to do the death ending than this one, right? I had to mess around for a bit to get the quest working, as the triggers for D2 appear were a little bit unclear, but eventually we got him and his ridiculous armor to come to the round table. I then went to get aroused by Ranni before speaking to Blythe and Saluvis below. It seemed to also make sense to take the alternate way to activate the Radahn festival, so I went down to Siofra, went back to speak to Saluvis, and then asked this witch to lend me her knowledge. After speaking to Blythe one more time below, we made our way to Caelid to get the grace before the Radahn festival. Look at that beautiful red sky. Before heading in, I went to finish off this nonsense in the round table. After weathering the storm of all this damn dialogue, Fia kills this guy after he tried to give her the D and then disappears. So, onto our boy Radahn. As you can probably imagine, this fight wasn't too difficult as you can just stand back and fire. The only bad part was when I killed him, but he hit me at the same time, taking me out. Often when this happens, it usually still counts as a win for the player, but this time, it did not. At the very least on the next attempt, he was courteous enough to give me some really good RNG that let me do a lot of damage to him before he did the phase transition. After avoiding the meteor, I literally just stood still spamming Ancient Death Rancor until he died. At least that one death didn't discourage me. We now did a level up into Dexterity, as I wanted to try to max my casting speed eventually, and now we head down to Nauron, the Eternox city. I didn't really want to mess about with Mimic Tier this time, so decided to do the cheese where I remove all my gear before entering. But somehow, this ended up being one of the most painful Mimic Tier fights in a long while. You see, even though he could barely damage me, he takes on my stats, meaning he had huge magic resistance from my 99 int. This meant my spell barely did any damage, and he kept dodging it. I'd foolishly not brought enough FP flasks, so I ended up having to rely on the Blessed Blue Dew talisman to carry me through. This Mimic Tier fight lasted 5 whole minutes, which is actually an insane amount of time for this boss. We finally took him down after a lot of casting, but this fight was almost satirical in nature. Anyway, with that unexpected annoyance handled, we grab the Finger Araya blade and then show it to Ranni to get the Ian the Car inverted statue. This little trinket lets us turn the study hall upside down, allowing us to drop from some beams and somehow end up on the top of the tower fighting a Godskin noble, because magic, I guess. Despite doing his best Fred Durst impression, we took him out with no issue and then scaled to the top of the tower here to claim the Curse Mark of Death. I then went to upgrade my staff again before easily besting one of my viewers' blood Roan out in PvP. Not sure why he keeps coming back when I keep beating him so easily. Anyway, the actual reason we're here is to take on the Valiant Gargoyles. As it turns out, Ancient Death Rancor is a pretty goated spell for taking these guys down. All of the skulls hit most of the time, and the damage is really solid. I did take a bit of a beating in the process, but that's par for the course of this run by now. After taking out the Axeman, his twin followed soon after, sending them both to Valhalla. We next emerged from a beautiful coffin as a death butterfly ready for the deep root depths. I made my way to the top of the roots to take on Fia's champions. I was a little nervous about this after how painful Mimic Tear had been, but it turns out I had nothing to worry about. Unlike Mimic Tear, these guys did not in fact have 99 int, and as such did a terrible job of avoiding the projectiles. This also felt cathartic because when you normally fight Lionel, he relentlessly spams this same type of death sorcery at you, so giving him a taste of his own medicine just felt right. We leave him Lion shortly after and get rewarded with a pretty useless death sorcery called Fia's Mist. With our staff now at plus 24, I spent way too long cuddling Fia and getting more balls on her chin blessings before she finally let me enter the deathbed dream. Yep, it's Fortisax time. You'd think the Death Dragon would be difficult to kill with death sorceries, but this was an actual joke. The skulls did a great job of hitting his head weak point, and he doesn't have all that much health for a boss that requires that amount of effort to get to. With a few more of them, we turn him from Fortisax into 4-6-7. With that, we can acquire the Mending Rune of the Death Prince for our ending of choice. We at last head into the capital after that enormous detour. But not before some new drip. I mean, we kinda had to wear this really. Okay, so remember I said about entering the capital a few seconds ago? Well, it suddenly occurred to me that there were actually a few more death sorceries to grab in the DLC. After trying and failing several times to invade actual players, I instead just opted to kill Magnus the Beastclaw as normal, and then brutally murdered Irina before taking Vari's medal and doing the same to him. On to Mohg Lord of Blood. Now, compared to the last two cycles, this was a lot easier. Ignore that death there, you saw nothing. Shh. Okay, so yes, he does do an absolute boatload of damage, but we can pretty comfortably stand at a distance and fire away with Ancient Death Rancor. So I gotta be honest here, part of the reason I want to do the DLC now is because I'd like a bit more variety. While these Rancor spells are very decent, they're also kind of boring. A lot of these fights have been standing at distance and just spam casting. It's effective for sure, but it's not the most exciting form of combat. Mohg did still put up a bit of a fight here, but he simply wasn't Mohg-bile enough to avoid the skulls. His Blood Echoes did allow us to get 2 more levels in Dex, which was quite nice. I then made my way into the DLC and activated the Grace by the Cerulean Coast, as we'll be coming back here shortly. First though, we need to make it through Dragon Pit. We quickly used Ancient Dragon Rancor to take out Ancient Deathman, both the Red Phantom and the Encore Performance. Getting through the pit means we can enter the area known as Charo's Hidden Grave. After getting lost for a while, I finally found what I was looking for, a new death sorcery known as Rings of Spectral Light. Now, unfortunately, this spell does not get a boost from the Prince of Death's staff, but it does have some other unique properties we'll get into shortly. But for now, we need to make our way into the Great Fissure, so I went and broke the barrier and headed right on in. The rings not only have good tracking, but also one of the longest ranges on any spell I've seen so far. They can also inflict frostbite, but that's not so useful here. We can also grab another spell here, Massive Putrescence, a Putrescent Knight special. Speaking of the Horseman of Kos, let's go pay him a visit. I had expected this to be rough given he has fairly good magic resistance, but I always forget how low his health is compared to other DLC bosses. If you have a way of countering his mobility, which we definitely do given the tracking of the spells we're using, then he's really not so bad. Rings did less than Ancient Death Rancor, but I found it a bit more consistent to hit him. After a few consecutive casts, we ring him down. Using his remembrance, we can acquire yet another death sorcery, Vortex of Putrescence. I suppose we should probably test them out. Massive Putrescence is a projectile that lets off a ghost flame wave along the ground a few seconds after it hits. I gotta be honest, this spell sucks. The cast time is insanely long even if you don't charge it, and the damage is very underwhelming. Now, Vortex of Putrescence is much better, sending a ring around you of ghost flame. It can hit multiple times, and the cast time is so quick you can get multiple of them off. Anyway, we bring Dexterity to 34 and arrive at the top of Jagged Peak. I tried out Massive Putrescence again against Bayle, but I just don't understand why that cast time is so long for such meager damage. Vortex did pretty well when I was under Bayle, and we got a pretty quick frostbite. For phase 2, I switched to Rings of Spectral Light for some head hits. I did test out Ancient Death Rancor, which did do a bit more damage, but it did also mean there was no chance of frostbite. For the final part of his health bar, I brought Rings of Spectral Light back on, only to miss a dodge and die right near the end. Pure pain. For the next attempt, I decided to just use rings for the second phase, as the chance of a frost proc just felt too good to pass up. With enough of these, we took him down without too much issue. These rings were strong spectralize here. With Dexterity receiving another point boost, we made our way to the church district and engaged in the usual activity of telling these knights to go suck it. Especially this one. I let this one live though, as I really wanted to just take out Hornsent ASAP before I forget and screw myself over later. I did have some high hopes for Messmer this go around. He is pretty weak to frostbite, and at least Rings of Spectral Light is quick to cast. There were a few close calls in the first part of the fight, and honestly, yeah, that was due to my greed. I won't deny it. But the damage is definitely there. He did spank me in the second phase, including this weird hitbox at one point where it felt like I got hit by nothing, but nothing a couple more frost procs couldn't sort out. That frost certainly left his skin looking impaler. Dexterity now gets leveled up again, and we enter Rao Ruins. Romina, similar to fellow Rottenjoyer Malenia, is also quite weak to frostbite. Took a fairly small amount of Rings of Spectral Light to get that first frost proc. Unfortunately, I made the stupid decision of trying Massive Putrescence, and soon remembered why we don't use this spell. Why is it so slow? After that disaster, I for some reason decided to just try it again. I'll be honest, I'm watching this back now, I have no idea what's wrong with me. This time though, I did decide to switch to rings again, and this unsurprisingly performed considerably better as a result, and we got a fast kill which was buttery smooth. Dexterity is slowly getting up there, but not as slowly as aneurysyms or farms up in the air here. Now, there is a specific upgrade we can get for our build, but we'll get that soon enough. Because I clearly have brain damage, I decided to again try Massive Putrescence, this time on Smo's mum. When will I have enough proof that this spell sucks? At least I wasn't stupid enough to try it on the Dancing Lion Simp. Giving these stupid birds a taste of their own medicine was very satisfying. Flying tossers. Heading down these stairs, I nail this jump and grab the Gravebird Helm, which gives a 15% boost to Rings of Spectral Light. Now, despite having never seen this happen before, Leda again got me with some invisible swords. That is some mega jank. But hey, some good news, I found a pretty viable use for Vortex of Putrescence. It can easily hit both Leda and Dane at the same time, especially when Natan is distracting them. The fact it staggers them and does frostbite lets me have some pretty good control of this one. In this fight, the spell performed Vortex-exceptionally well. Now, onto what was one of the smoothest Promised Consort Radahn fights we've had so far. Rings of Spectral Light pretty comfortably handled the first phase, but for phase 2, I decided to try and give Vortex of Putrescence another chance to shine. And shine it actually kinda did. Providing I dodged Radahn's attack so I was in position far enough away so he couldn't instantly turn around and bonk me, landing it was very consistent. When he did the big explosion, I would run and then land some rings for long range damage, but other than that, it vortexed just a few more casts to get us the victory. The DLC is now completed for this cycle, so back to Lanedale at last. That was a big old detour, wasn't it? Well, we're back to the classic Death Sorcery gameplay against Godfrey. Spam those skulls, baby. It does trigger him to do the dash stomp, but our damage is really good, especially if all those skulls hit. Overall, a fairly trivial affair. But now it's time to get one of the most notorious spells in the game. By blasting down this Tibia Mariner, we get rewarded with Tibia Summons. What does this spell do? Well, it sends out 3 skeletons to slash at the opponent. It casts very slow, but good news, the next boss Morgott can be held in place via shackle. The damage is actually pretty good from these little skeletons, but once we run out of shackle uses, things get trickier. At least we can get him as he comes out of the phase transition. I then got kinda lucky in that he did 2 moves in a row, which locked him in place enough for me to cast this 2 more times to pull out the win. With how much it missed, this spell is more some off than some on. With 39 decks and a dead tree in the road, I ventured with my frosty spells to the frosty northern mountains. One guy who was not so frosty was our buddy the fire giant. Just for further memes, I used the tibia summons to break his ankle, but then swiftly switched back to Ancient Death Rancor to get some actual reliable damage in there. I then blasted him with a Death Rancor onslaught to start the second phase, and kinda just kept doing that. I don't think I took a single hit in the second part of the fight. Hardly a rancorageous approach, but hey, it worked. Dexterity now reaches 40, and we go to use tibia summons to kill this difficult boss for the first medallion half. We now make our way to Castle Sol for the second half. The summons did significantly less well for hitting Niall, probably unsurprisingly, but Vortex of Putrescence got yet another chance to shine. With one knight dead, I ravaged this ragamuffin's health with Rancor. It was very easy to cast a lot of them and blast away at him. This honestly might be one of the most brainless spells I've encountered so far on this run. Can't argue with the results though. Second medallion half get. After making it to the snowfields, we have another Deathrite bird to take out for the final death sorcery. This is the toughest Deathrite bird in the whole base game. He deals a ton of damage and also has a lot of health, which our magic attacks struggle to chip down. But he does have one weakness: standing slightly too far from the area he spawns. For whatever reason, when you reach here, he just stops attacking and moves side to side while we just barrage him. He did start moving back, so I had to close in, but we took him out with relative ease to earn the right to use Explosive Ghost Flame. I did use this spell once in a run ages ago, and I remember it not being very good due to how slow it was, but maybe we'll get a different result here. Malenia was then fired from her job, Dexterity gets pumped a little more, and then we head into everybody's favourite duo. So my plan here was to stand behind a pillar and use Explosive Ghost Flame for profit hopefully. The first attempt went not well. The second, however, I did manage to get them with the Explosive Ghost Flame through the pillar. I actually managed to kill both Godskins at once with one of the explosions after they phase transitioned. This spell actually kind of trivialized this fight, like I couldn't believe it, quickly proccing Frost and bringing them down. Despite me taking hits through the pillars, this was quite effective. All the Frost gave them a pretty bad God skin condition. At the suggestion of my chat, I then took out this Crucible Knight for once, which was a slow process, but he never landed a single hit on me, so worth it I say. I then used rings for these birds, and also for this ancient dragon. Happy days! Before we proceed, I went to grab a Golden Order seal for the next cycle, and the starting spell of Litany of Proper Death. Yes, that is really what we're going to use. I then had a chat with the Draconic Tree Sentinel to ask him if this attack rung any bells, but he didn't take too kindly to that. Luckily I dodged this attack in the Dracon nick of time. It was now time to try Explosive Ghost Flame on Malekith. Ow. Okay, maybe let's do Rings of Spectral Light first. This was an easy solution for the Beast Clergyman as he just does not like range. For Malekith, I landed a few on him, but then took this opening to land Explosive Ghost Flame for monster damage. After dodging another furious combo from him, an Ancient Death Rancor was all it took. An Ancient Destined Death Rancor, if you will. With the Ashen One hangover sorted out, you just know that we're going to Explosive Ghost Flame Gideon. This actually felt kind of mean, like he couldn't really do anything, and we just blasted him over and over again. This time he was Gideon the all blowing up. Godfrey next stood in our way. I was curious how many times I could get away with using Explosive Ghost Flame on him. Pretty hard to do without getting punished in return, except when he does the charge up stomp midway through the first phase. After this, I figured there was no chance he'd let me do it again, so swapped to Rancor. I did boldly go for Ghost Flame again at the start of the Hoaraloo phase though. And again, as he dashed at me. This pushed him into his charge up slam, which I easily avoided while the lingering Ghost Flame procced Frostbite. One more explosion, and this looming threat was defeated. So as you know, we're pretty high into the new game cycles now. Want to see what damage looks like? Check out Elden Beast killing me in a single hit here. Ouch. Positive side though, Explosive Ghost Flame is amazing for Radahn. Huge continuous damage, frost proc, and it even makes you duck under some of his hammer swings. What's not to love? For Elden Beast, obviously we can't frost it, but the explosion and the lingering flames still do some pretty good damage. There were however some times where it was just more appropriate to use Ancient Death Rancor due to distance. Both could do some pretty good numbers in the right position. The one scary bit was late into the fight, where I was trying to use Torrent to avoid his golden flames, but got stuck against the wall of the arena. Torrent thankfully took the brunt of it, and victory comes soon after, just as the rank Oracle predicted. How much more dexterity do we need? Still quite a bit, but we are getting there. I decided to absolutely disrespect the Ordina archers by killing them with Tibia summons, before going to the Halig tree and blowing up some snails. I then almost uncovered a new cheese for Loretta, but she quickly told me to pipe down. The strat here? Well, Explosive Ghost Flame at the start, followed by Rings of Spectral Light due to their fast casts and good tracking. Once Loretta was down to half health, I used the phase transition to land 2 Explosive Ghost Flames. Following these, rings, and rings some more until she frosts up again. Teach her for giving us the cold shoulder. After threading the needle by making it through this enemy obstacle course, it was time to take on Malenia once again. I had much that I wanted to try here. Vortex of Putrescence was reasonably good, although meant I had to be a little close for comfort. Rings actually wasn't great here, because she'd dodge after the first one hit her. Tibia Summons was, well, it was awful, what did you expect? Ancient Death Rancor had the same problem as Rings, so that's out. Now Explosive Ghost Flame though, it actually knocks her down, and she keeps taking damage from it. This could be the winner, as long as she doesn't decide to waterfowl while you're doing it. Crazy that this spell I thought would be trash is coming in clutch again. Just cast it when she's relatively close to you, and hope she doesn't do a hyper armor attack. The damage this could rack up, especially with a frost proc, was pretty incredible. Yes, it was for sure risky because sometimes she'd hit me out of it, but it was worth it honestly. To start phase 2, I gave her a nice spam of Ancient Death Rancor, this being the only time she wouldn't dodge it. I actually found because of the fact she's more aggressive here, I could get away with using Rings of Spectral Light a little. But, once again, Vortex of Putrescence came in handy for some unavoidable chip. When she did the Ionia again, I blasted off my rings to get another frost proc. Her health was low now, but of course one mistake as we know could spell my demise. She did the Ionia again, but I needed to use a blue flask before I could attack. Luckily, I still had the time to land the last few rings to leave this cycle resting in sweet death. Although, not quite yet, I had wanted to find a use for Fia's Mist before I moved on, but it doesn't seem to work on NPCs like Kayle. Apparently, it can work on NPC invaders, but they have an insane resistance to it, so actually getting Deathblight to proc just isn't feasible. Luckily, this guy Dan from my chat was able to assist, coming in and letting me Deathblight him into oblivion. I raised my Golden Order seal now to +3, and then watched the Age of the Duskborn ending to conclude this cycle. These spells were mostly pretty good, almost too good at points. I really liked Explosive Ghost Flame the most, I'd say. That was a real surprise. Ancient Death Rancor is obviously awesome, but it's just not the most interesting spell to use. Overall though, a great spell group, would recommend. But now once again, we finish off the video with a magic school that only deals pure holy damage, and this time it's New Game +7, the most difficult the game can be. I started with Litany of Proper Death, which deals amazing damage to undead enemies, and absolutely terrible damage to anything else. After one cast, I jumped off the side of this cliff. We need to get a better incant for our build and fast. So I went to get this medallion piece, saw some abhorrent damage against Flying Dragon Grail, spoke to Corin at the round table, and then went and grabbed the second medallion piece from Far Fortoth. It was then a simple matter of running to Liurnia, taking the academy portals, and making my way up to Altus again. I probably should have done this last cycle, but better late than never, I guess. We speak to Corin again in the round table, which triggers him to move to Altus to search for Goldmask. After finding him and getting into a pointed debate, we lead Corin to him, which causes him to sell Discus of Light for a honestly absurd price of 11,000 runes. Before we totally abandon it, I will say Litany of Proper Death is good for killing these skeletons, as it prevents them reviving, so there's that I guess. Anyway, Now we actually have a decent offensive miracle, we might as well go take on Starscourge Radahn. I mean, going to Altus activated the festival anyway. Let's talk about Discus of Light here. This has got to be the most FP efficient spell in the whole game. It costs a mere 3 FP to use and can hit twice as it returns to you like a boomerang. It's also very easy to spam and has good range and a fast cast speed. Now, of course, we are New Game Plus 7, and a large number of the main bosses in the base game have around 40% resistance to Holy, so the damage is hardly game-breaking. Particularly when my physic wore off in the latter part of the fight, I was no longer even seeing yellow damage from each hit. That said, it was easy enough to keep distance and hit him until he died. Not much more to discuss about this one. With the main boss beaten, we upgrade the seal to +4 and then pay an ever-pleasant visit to the Academy. Discus of Light was the perfect spell to use for the Red Wolf of Radahn. Not because it was particularly strong, just because it felt like I was playing Frisbee with a dog. It's a shame I don't have K9 lives though. After that extremely embarrassing defeat, I was able to take the wolf down fairly easily next try, thanks to it using the jumping sword attack at a wall and giving me some good openings. I pressed on ahead and tried to lift Cheese Moongrum, only for his brain to break for several seconds. He just stood there doing nothing until another hit brought him back to life, and we then got him to fall. I remembered suddenly I could upgrade my seal again before Renala, so I did just that. I didn't really know how this was going to go. I initially was worried we wouldn't have the damage to 2-cycle her in Phase 1, but thankfully my worries were unfounded and we easily sliced her down. Phase 2 was a bit more annoying because she jumped around a lot and I could rarely get the rebound hit to connect with her. But still, her health isn't that high compared to other bosses, so no amount of dodging could save her from her light. With the seal now upgraded to +6, I made my way to the capital outskirts. As we didn't do him earlier, I decided to take on Margit just before the capital. One thing that's pretty weird with this fight is he has a pretty short draw distance from where he spawns. He also behaved weirdly here and just kept walking side to side while I pelted him, not sure what his Tarn issue is. I pressed on through the roads to the capital until we met with Draconic Tree Sentinel. I was expecting the damage to not be great here, but surprisingly it was actually very solid. Before he even finished his startup animation, we had dealt over 7,000 damage, taking off well over half his health bar. He got a bit antsy in the second half, jumping around and spitting fireballs as he often likes to. Also, why does his horse spit fire? Is that ever explained? Anyway, a few more discuses remove him from this neighborhood. I ventured into the capital where this Oracle envoy tried to ruin the cinematic Junpei shot. Unacceptable. I sliced down the avatar on the way, and then got a very rare level up, bringing Dex to 46. Let's take on Godfrey now. As expected, he is another 40% Holy Resist boss, but he still takes pretty adequate damage per cast thanks to his mid-game health. We shut him up and teach him that silence is golden. Speaking of teaching, we can now grab the Golden Order Principia here to give to Corin, allowing us to finally get some more spells. We buy Radagon's Rings of Light and also Law of Regression. Law of Regression of course is purely to reveal this statue, which helps us progress towards Goldmask's ending again. Feels appropriate, doesn't it? As for Radagon's Rings of Light, well, it fires out a big holy AoE with a somewhat slow cast time. Ow. I now upgrade our seal to +7 and face Morgott. It should be noted that I went to grab the Golden Order seal nearby to offhand for more damage. Radagon's Rings of Light does an acceptable chunk, but how long it leaves me locked in place can definitely be a problem. There are some openings to get it off though, and I was determined to beat him using only this incantation. As long as I timed it right, there were definitely opportunities to land it. I even timed one just as Morgott came out of the phase transition for tasty damage. Despite a few mistakes on my part, including getting impaled by his grab and barely surviving, I was able to take him out by courageously hiding behind this part of the arena and casting. This is why I'm a pillar of the community. With the seal upgraded once again, I outbusted a cap in this guy to get half of the Haligtree Medallion before ascending to Ryan Gosling Land. I then solved the mystery of how to get past these lions and proceeded to the top of this fortress to take on Niall. My initial plan was just to hit him with many discus at the start to chunk his health down. I then used Radagon's rings to handle the summons. As he phase transitioned, he was met with another Discus Deluge, and then a couple more of Radahnn's Rings of Light was enough to end it. A Radahn honourable fight for sure. With the second medallion piece claimed, we headed to the snowfields and into Ordina again. At least my Discus easily handled the archers this time. I was determined to make it down into the Haligtree because there is another spell located there. I tried to return to the round table to upgrade my seal, as I forgot to do it earlier, but Ensha impeded my progress. Only briefly, mind you. So I upgrade our seal again and enter to face Loretta. Rings of Light took off a substantial amount of her health on this go around, which I was happy to see. Getting her twice during the phase transition helped to shorten this last bit. Surprisingly, I was able to find time to land it still. Why do I actually enjoy using slow casting spells to land damage? There's something just so satisfying about it, I find. I just want to use every tool in my arsenal and not halignore anything. With her down, I run into the lower part of the Haligtree to open this door and get triple Rings of Light from this chest. I wonder how useful this will be. Our seal is now max upgraded though, which is great news. You know what time it is now. Yup, it's Malenia time, baby. So, the good news is Radahnn's Rings of Light is able to knock Malenia down. But the bad news is that casting it often triggers her to enter a dodge animation during which she has hyper armor and can't be knocked down. Kinda unfortunate. Now, triple Rings of Light does have some utility here. It fires out 3 discs in a cone shape, and because Malenia always dodges to the side upon casting, this spell is guaranteed to hit here. The downside? It does only a tiny bit more damage than Discus of Light, but costs 23 FP versus Discus of Light's 3. So yeah, I'm not really sure it's worth it. Radahnn's Rings of Light conversely costs 21 FP and does nearly 4 times the damage that triple Rings of Light does. So, for the first phase, there was literally no reason to use anything else. For phase 2, I used a Discus spam after she did the Ionia. She was too likely to hit me here for Rings of Light to be viable most of the time, so I stuck with triple Rings of Light when I had some openings. There were 1 or 2 occasions where Radahnn's Rings of Light could work, but mostly triple Ring's ability to hit her when she dodges to the side from the cast was the most viable. This was a long fight though, with the winning attempt taking about 11 minutes. Towards the end, I actually started to get worried about running out of FP, so swapped back to Discus of Light for maximum FP efficiency. Despite some Malenia deaths, we persevere and defeat her. I now level Dexterity to 48 and return to the mountaintops to T-pose with our good buddy Goldmask in order to assert our dominance over the world. I then made my way to the snowfields where the Sanguine Noble started a run of his own. Shame he got ring-fenced pretty quickly. My next plan was to head to the DLC, and of course that means taking on Blogue, Lord of Mud. Now, he also has 40% Holy Resist, so I thought this would be a slog, but the damage really surprised me here. To begin, I just blasted him with many Discus until he was down to about 40% health. I then used the Shackle twice, both times doing Radahnn's Rings of Light for massive damage, especially on the second one, maybe that was a headshot, not sure. During the phase transition, I hit him with more Discus which counteracted a lot of the health he regained. I got some pretty good hits on him during phase 2, especially when I was on the stairs for the higher elevation. This maybe was also a headshot, hard to say. I fired away until we sent Moog back to his side gig as the elevator from The Shining. After another cheeky dex level up, we walk out into Gravesite Aeroplane, take the route up to the Fort of Reprimand, stare into my viewers' souls for an uncomfortable amount of time, and run into the Church District. Radahnn's Rings of Light did an absolutely unbelievable amount of damage to the Fire Knights here, and the knockback worked great to push this guy down. Now, of course, we need to do an optional remembrance boss this cycle, and who better than one that is actually weak to holy damage? I of course mean Commander Gaius. On my first attempt, I was an idiot and forgot to change my physic. Despite it being scuffed as hell, it did show me that the damage I could dish out was no joke. Nearly 9,000 damage with a charged Rings of Light. So, after dying and changing my physic, we go again. Even with just Discus of Light, we deal 2,500 per hit, over 5,000 if he gets caught in the rebound. I mainly baited the big ball slam for Rings of Light and riskily landed one as he phase transitioned. Worth it. With another one after the spiral gravity slam, and one more while he rampaged, it pushed him to 1 hit from death, which was enough for triple Rings of Light to end him. When he saw our damage, he should have aborted his mission. Here, I swapped the Golden Order seal in our offhand for the Dryleaf seal, as it actually gives a 5% higher boost to the Golden Ring incantations. I now went back to the round table and told Gideon about the Lord of Blood's cocoon to get Law of Causality, a probably useless spell. So after taking out this Fire Knight, let's talk about Law of Causality. Remember Karmic Justice from Dark Souls 1? That spell where if you take enough hits, it lets off an explosion damaging enemies? Yeah, this is basically that. I tried this out with a tanky setup against Mesmer, and after all those hits, it finally procced, and the damage we get is... wow. Just wow. So needless to say, I'm probably never going to use this again. Especially when Mesmer decides to behave like this. Why am I suddenly failing to dodge the grab? As much as the temptation was there for me to use Radagon's Rings of Light, for the most part, it simply was not worth it. Discus of Light dealt solid damage and... seriously, I got caught by the grab again? What's wrong with me? Anyway, on this 5th attempt, after not choking the grab dodge this time, I kept the pressure on and at last pushed him to phase 2. At the start of this, I did risk Radagon's Rings of Light, and it was kinda worth it for the 7,000 plus damage. Remember, Mesmer loses all his holy resistance this phase. After managing to land a few, I felt it was better to play it safe now and just use Discus of Light to weaken him. I wanted to be sure the last Radagon's Rings of Light would be enough to kill him, and thankfully, it was. Mesmer wasn't able to dodge it, probably because he crushed his eye. If he'd kept it, he would have had more eye frames. I now leveled up Dexterity to 50, ran past this Fire Knight who actually chased me all the way up the stairs this time, and went to face Romina. It's worth mentioning here that so many people in my chat had been claiming that Triple Rings of Light was better if you cast it up close, as all 3 rings will hit and it will do a lot more damage. Romina with her wide body would kind of be the prime target to test this on, and yeah, as usual, chat was wrong. Despite there being 3 rings, only one of them hits, even if it looks like all 3 should be hitting. Trash spell. And no, I didn't just try this once, I tried this a whole lot of times at a variety of ranges, and it quite simply does not do more damage even if all 3 rings look like they're touching her. At this point, I actually unequipped this because there's simply no reason to use it over Discus of Light. By the way, Discus dealt 13,000 damage to her at the start of the fight. Radagon's Rings dealt just under 6,000, but it was hard to reliably cast it here. Still, sometimes worth it for the trade. I did mostly stick with Discus for the later section, and before long, we put an end to her incessant rotting. We may as well open the way to aneurysyms now and go say hello to Harvey Birdman. After a lengthy discussion about the law, I fed Smo's mum her dinner, blow up all the jury simps here, and cut up the dancing lion simp here before preparing for yet another NPC gank, everybody's favourite, yay! Stupidly, I completely forgot about Hornsent this time. He wasn't too annoying to take out, at least despite his constant dodging. Then, in similar fashion to the death cycle, I let Natan take the aggro and repeatedly blasted Leda and Dane with Radagon's Rings of Light. They either dodge it, giving Natan an opening, or they get knocked over, so it's a win-win. After enough of these, Dane and Leda end up in pain and deader. So on to Promised Consort Radahn. This was quite interesting because I discovered a little quirk of his AI during this fight. You'll recall he has a combo which is sort of similar to Pontiff Sullivan's from Dark Souls 3. It turns out, if he is hit during this combo, which happened a few times thanks to the rebound of Discus of Light, he will immediately transition into another attack. This got me killed a fair few times until I realised what was happening. At least phase 1 goes quickly this time due to the low holy resistance. On this next attempt, he again got hit during the combo and transitioned into another attack. Despite this, and also a terrifying moment where I got stuck against the wall during his meteor combo, I somehow survived and kept going. Discus wasn't doing amazing damage, but hey, it's yellow, and sometimes that's all you can hope for. I will say, the finish here was excellent. As he went up to do the meteor combo again, I fired my Discus, hitting him and killing him in midair. I feel positively light-hearted after that. With another point in Dex, I went to quickly hear about Egon and his pain before massacring the ancient Dragon Man's Red Phantom. This time though, the real one didn't go down so easy. Maybe he was mad after I'd mocked him so much in the previous cycles. It really felt like he had my number here, dodging many of my attacks and nearly killing me quite a few times. At the very least, he granted me a great kill, blasting him in midair as he tried to dragon bite me. I made my way up Jagged Peak for the 8th time across this run, still in awe by the epic surroundings, and entered Bayle the Dread's arena. My strategy here was pretty straightforward: get underneath him initially for a couple Radahnn's rings, and then switch to the Discus of Light barrage. Given his large size, getting both hits from the Discus to hit was pretty much guaranteed. In no time at all, we pushed him to phase 2. Despite the lock-on disappearing as he flew up, I was still able to dodge the attack and keep going. I mainly just kept distance and fired away, although I did find time for a couple more Radahnn's rings near the end. Once he died, I used his body to make some dreadables. Okay. How crazy is this? I was able to level up twice! Insanity! In preparation for the next cycle, I went to grab one of the incantations you can get with his heart, only to realize the Bayle hearts carry over from one cycle to the next, which I genuinely did not know. Well, back to the base game, and onto the final boss gauntlet. You know what's coming at the end of this, and yes, I was feeling pretty scared at this point. Luckily, one of the bosses I was not worried about was Fire Giant. Radahnn's Rings of Light was enough to break his ankle in one cast and deal mega damage. Discus of Light helped to push us through to phase 2 shortly. As with any projectile build, the fact we can hit his body is a huge boon. I did nearly die to a combo of fireballs and him rolling, but other than that, this was a really smooth fight, and we proved to be a blight upon his existence. Dexterity creeps ever closer to the cast speed cap of 70, and Malenia once again does her best Burning Man festival impression. In Farum Azula, I banished this knight and made my way to the Godskins. If you've seen how I like to operate, you probably know what I wanted to do here. Radahnn's Rings of Light through the pillar to both Godskins. Extremely satisfying as always. Except when the noble rose over this pillar, he also rolled again very soon after, which I was not prepared for. Eventually, with enough running away, I take both Godskins out at almost the same time. I was then able to mostly smoke the Apostle before the noble rejoined, and then a couple more Radahnn's Rings of Light torched the last of their health, leaving their ears ringing. I grabbed some nice drip for the Dragon Communion cycle later, and had a jolly old time taking out all the stupid birds in this area from a distance. I also obliterated this dragon and got the Ancient Dragon Stones up ahead. The Draconic Tree Sentinel version 2 went pretty similar to his brother from earlier, 14,000 damage before he even managed to do an attack. But now, the real hell of this run begins. Malekith, the first of 2 boss fights that feature 80% holy resistance. A real bad time for our build, as you can probably imagine. I will say, the one saving grace compared to the Miquellan incantation cycle is the super low FP cost of Discus of Light, which means even though the damage is low, there isn't much danger in terms of running out of FP. The other thing is, I still remembered some of the strategy from that cycle as well, baiting him into doing his flippy attack and dodging through to get an attack window. Sure, that the damage we do is awful. Even if the rebound Discus hits, it's only a total of 330. But baiting these attack combos felt fairly consistent. This combined with Malekith not having that much health meant that surprisingly, I was able to defeat him on my first attempt. Did you see the secret thing during this boss fight, by the way? There's a very well hidden Beaster egg. After a hearty dinner of bangers and ash, I went up to Gideon and let several Radahnn's Rings of Light off near him until he died. The real Godfrey is pretty resistant to holy damage, as you can probably imagine. Not as much as Malekith by any stretch, but still it's much less damage than many bosses we faced so far. I didn't attempt Radahnn's Rings of Light outside of one window at the very start of the Oracular phase. From here, the fight became a bit more drawn out, as landing the Discus was harder, and also the physic buff had worn off, meaning we did a lot less damage. As he got close to death, I simply couldn't resist using Radahnn's Rings and ending him in stylish fashion. A very nice clean victory before I lose my mind. To try and put off the awful pain that I knew was coming, I leveled up again and then grabbed the Dragon Communion seal and the Dragon Claw incantation for the next cycle. With that upgraded to +3, there was no putting it off any longer. If you've seen the previous video in this series, you know this is going to be bad. In New Game +7, Radahn and Elden Beast have a combined total health of 49,703, and of course, as mentioned, they have an 80% holy resistance. Now, again, FP is less of a concern here than before. Also, Radahnn's Rings of Light at the start of the fight while my buffs are active can help to do some decent chip damage. The bad news is he can still parry it. After a while, Discus of Light is just the best option, doing similar damage as with Malekith, providing you can land it without him parrying it. On this attempt, it was 9 minutes just to get through the Radahn phase, but I had used up too many healing flasks, and even though I got through half of Elden Beast's health bar, he took me out after I had fought for nearly 16 minutes straight. Sadly, this was not the only time this would happen. On this attempt here, I just didn't quite manage to heal as Elden Stars finished me off over 20 minutes into the attempt. The fact I was having to go through this again was despair-inducing. The winning attempt was one of the longest fights I've ever had at 28 minutes. Junpei, do your thing. Roll the music. After I had mentally recovered from that traumatic event, I leveled up again, went to grab the Mending Rune of Perfect Order from Goldmask, and decided to take care of one final piece of business. That being killing Rick Soldier of God with only Law of Causality. No, I'm not kidding, we are really doing that. Hey, at least the explosion is doing decent damage here. The shield is definitely a must though. Yay, we killed a boss with only this god-awful spell. I also took the time to respec Int to Arcane for the Dragon Communion cycle, and brought this cycle, and video 2 in our series, to a close. I would probably rank the Golden Order incantations above the Miquellan ones, at least for overall utility, but that Radahn Beast fight was absolute hell. I hope I never have to do that again. Anyway, thanks for watching. Next time, we'll be doing Dragon Communion, Blood Oath, Carrion, and Frenzied Flame magic schools, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, I've been JK Leeds, see ya, and have a good one.